Good evening, everyone. And probably this is the last one. Even I'm also waiting for because I need to rush to the airport as well. And thanks for joining. At least I can see a lot of crowd compared to the middle of the day. So actually, like Sridhar Rao invited us like to talk about like how Shell is doing. And interestingly, like when we started today, one of the forecasts like what is an oil and gas industry to do with the open source? Yeah, so because it's only for the technology company. That's a question being asked to me, to both of us. So that is the same question even we do have internally because people used to ask like why we need to contribute and why we need to like how we need to consume and so on. A lot of awareness has to happen a traditional company like Shell. So probably we'll try to do like some sort of awareness here and see like how we can take back home as well. And a lot of learning from the morning like how we can shape something for Shell as well. So probably a quick introduction about me. So I'm Naresh. I'm heading the digital commercial and open innovation for Shell. Close to 2 decades in Shell now, a span of like 20 years almost in finance, commercial, technology, innovation. And so I'm also like fellow member of like Grow London, Londons and Partners, Open Innovation. And I'm also a like fellow of Chartered Certified Accountant as well, a blend of technology and finance. So that's about my background. And Sachin can talk about his introduction when he's coming through. So we thought like how to progress with the session. So we want to like tell you like what is the open innovation means and what we are running in Shell, and how this piece of work like open source fit into the overall strategy what we are operating. So that's what we want to talk about. So basically, so why traditional innovation falls short? So this is not only like specific to Shell. And when I was part of like the innovation fellowship, I also like got sort of an insight from 20 to 30 different corporates, and they also like seasoned enough and establishments over 100 years. They do have a problem of like how they can open up their IPs and also like work with the external ecosystem. That's a perennial issue for them as well. So based on their input and also like some of the McKinsey study, so we thought like three different aspects like where it shapes the open innovation mindset within Shell. So one is like the capital deficit. So few of the company will be having a muscle power, but still they do have a restriction on the budget, like the spend paradox, like 60% close to companies like falling short of the budget because they don't want to like spend anymore, and how we can invite some of the ecosystem into play. And so basically, problem worth solving, that is what we aim for, like as a capital, to cover the capital deficit. And also the capability deficit is also there in most of the companies as well. So capability, I think startups will be having like one single vision they focus on, whereas like companies like Shell and also larger companies, they'll be like throwing the balls in all the corner. And sometimes like it'll also miss. And so and it makes sense like how we can tap on the capability, not all the capability we can build within Shell. So we have to type external ecosystem better. So that's what we are doing, and also we want to do it as well. So execution failure is one key thing. So which is like half of the executions, like the project starts and also like ends in a sometime like we forced to close like without a completion as well. So it's not only Shell as a whole. I think industry as such is moving because rapid innovation is happening outside of the larger organization. The third one is like culture, which is like probably a capital and capability. Probably we can get that one, but culture is a big thing. So fear of failure, and also like the leadership buy-ins, and also like a weak venture governance as well. Sometimes we go and buy some of the companies, and the cultural misfit between the companies will also cause some problem of open innovation as well. So those kind of problem like where the larger company faces. So basically, so for all these deficit, like how we can tap on the ecosystem in a better way. That's what the thought process for these kind of companies. So as you all know, like the why we need to do the innovation, because we see an innovation gap. It's more about like what is our end goal want to be as a company, and where we are as a capability and capital as well, how to close the gap. So not all the gaps to be closed only by a single entity, because we cannot build all the capability and capacity within one company. So we have to go for a open innovation mechanism. So that's what we think for. And when we need to go for open innovation, so one, when it is not a core competency, I think, to be honest, to pass this slide pack alone, it took around like 2 weeks time for Sachin. So such kind of closed environment, so not to share anything and everything in the open public. So that's how it operates. So, but how people are opening right now is like this, the maturity level and also the culture is changing, and where a lot of IP is being shared, and we are part of it as well, as part of the opening up the ecosystem. Second is a market standard approach. Once we perfect some of the products internally, and also first to the market is not the urgency. So what we can make the product with the extreme use of existing capacity, and how to tap up the outside capacity to perfect the product beyond the market standard as well. That's one of the objective of open innovation, and that's what we follow. And sharing resources and diverse perspectives. So a lot of thought process of now AI augmented workforce kind of thing. So why a person, why a company has to go for a firm, why not to an individual as well who is equipped with AI augmentation. So kind of thinking process is evolving in the industry, how we can tap up those things. So not only with the firm and also with the individuals as well. And finally, a few of the things will also spin out as a new business model. Like one we did, one AI model we did only for Shell, but turned out to be a use case for a cement industry as well. So that commercially, we also tapped up, and also it is helpful outside of the organization. So yeah, so what we do in Shell. So these are all philosophies outside of Shell and also in Shell. But what we do in Shell, we focus on two things. One is inbound innovation, outbound innovation. So how early in the process we can bring on some of the people, especially the scale-ups and partners, with multiple set of programs. For example, future pitch. So we invite people to pitch on exactly the problem, what we want to solve it, and that comes out from the business as well. The second is hackathons, you all know about it, and Shell 4, Changemaker events and so on, inviting startups and scale-ups to participate, understanding their capabilities and so on. Startups in academia, so we work with close to 600 academias out across the globe. And startups a countless we have, exactly because the range of business we operate is a massive in the energy industry. So the last one on inbound is events and community management. So the culture has to be built. That's what we are trying to do it, because that's perennial issue in a company like Shell, because we have around 1 lakh plus employees. So Shell.ai, Shell.web3, inner source is also one of the culture we want to build before getting into open source. So it's a massive community within Shell as well. So how we can see the external ecosystem within Shell, not restricted to one department they can contribute. So that's what we do in inbound. The outbound innovation is more of how we can take some of the ideas, technologies, everything outside, and also work with startups and so on. So one is licensing and spin-offs. So if we see a joint and shared IPs as well, how we can tap on the market and then spinning out and making industry standard kind of product outside as well. Partnership, co-innovation, I think it's massively emphasized right now, because one, innovate for cost, how we can reduce the cost of some of the stuff, and also how we can perfect the product, because how we turn the suppliers into a co-innovator. So not necessarily it is a transactional process, how we can put them early in the innovation process as well. The final one is open source, which Sachin will walk you through. So this is what we do in open outbound innovation, and how the funnel works in Shell. So we work with the business, because a range of business we have from upstream, downstream, and renewable energy, integrated gas, and everything. So we work with them and understand what is our three different horizons of innovations which we need to focus on, and based on which we go understand the boundary within Shell and where we need to tap on. So early set of stage of the process and research phase. So we bring on a lot of internal, external knowledge, like through future pitch and also hackathon kind of thing to within Shell. And also, like, we also give back to the society in terms of the early stage. Like, if we see something can be validated and work with small companies, which we are also doing it as well. So once we decided what is the best strategy to go for open innovation, so academia, technology partners and everything, and inner and outside open source as well. So that's where I think we decide and develop and deploy. So once we develop and deploy, then we think through about the IP licensing. Sometime, if some problem cannot be solved internally, we also like buy in some licensing, which we also like work closely with the suppliers, and also like license out and also get the benefit out of the partners as well. And finally, like digital IPs, go-to-market strategy and licensing. That's thinking once we perfect the product, whether we can commercialize, and sometime we sell the IP and also buy back and implement within our asset so that we can cut down the cost of the asset and also encourage some of the partners as well to grow along with us. So that's what we do as part of open innovation. And probably open source in specific, this is a cluster of the entire Shell works, and open innovation, open source is like part of it, like where Sachin will cover in a few minutes. Yeah. Thanks.
Thanks, Naresh. So before I start like my session, I really want to see everyone this particular open source bit as from the open innovation angle. Again, most of here are aware about open source and how it functions, but we want to see everyone from a narrative of open innovation, because whatever is happening is sort of an open innovation. So I'll just talk about the evolution of software development and how it has evolved over the years. It started in 1960s. I mean, code, like most of the engineers started writing code in 50s, but in 60s, academy and research got into it. Earlier, it was mostly military. The scope was very minimal, mostly to war and countries' security and stuff. But then research and academics got into it because there was need to develop it from a narrow scope to a wider scope for the betterment of humanity. So every researcher used to work with their fellow researchers in different countries, different organizations, different institutes, and they used to share the code. So the idea was that software project is more of a research project and it requires inputs from others. And that's how, I don't know if everyone is aware about how DNA was formed, but one researcher was working on on some kind of blood work, and he was not able to figure out the strand of the DNA. And when he shared the similar his work with some fellow researcher in a different company, he was able to immediately recognize that there is a helix strand, and it can be qualified as a DNA strand, and that's how DNA came into existence. So whenever, let's say, diverse opinion is preferred, works get better, and researchers know about this. So that's how it used to be in 1960s. Now we'll move to 1970s, where the commercial angle came into the picture. What happened in 1970s is that the vacuum tubes which were used for computers, they got replaced with transistors. So the size dramatically reduced, and there was more of commercial usage that started, apart from the research. Code became valuable because it was part of computer, and computers started coming up in every home. And one of the other key factor was that the US courts, they in a judgment, they said that code is now copyrightable. So earlier, literature or any kind of notebooks that we see was copyrightable, but the source code was not. Post that 1970s, code was copyrightable, so, and other nations also followed. So this gave it sort of a pivot to proprietary movement. Now we'll talk about the open movement, and it branched out from the proprietary. So I don't know if everyone is aware about Richard Stallman and the printer story, but I'll just give like a 1-minute brief about it. So Richard Stallman was trying to schedule his print jobs, but he was not able to do so, and he couldn't see the code for that particular print application. And that's where he got really frustrated because he was someone who has seen our other researchers, programmers to share the code, but he just couldn't see the code. And that's when he started the free software movement. And at a later point of time, people, because everyone was getting confused with free software, they came up with the name open source, just to bring more clarity to it. Again, the term was coined at a much later point of time, but the open source gave clarity to it that the source should be open. Free software movement and open source, they are similar, but just to reduce the, I would say, confusion. So that's how the evolution has scope. But what you'll see is that the openness has come back again into the existence, and open source is actually ruling and eating the world. So this is like probably the most important slide of my session, which talks that how open source is solving challenges of open innovation. So whatever you see highlighted in dark yellow, which is IP management, complexity and coordination, unclear innovation goals, cultural resistance, and knowledge leaks. These are the major challenges any company will face when it comes to open source. So I'll just start with IP management. So it's always a difficult task for a company to manage their IP when they are developing something in the open. Who gets what? Because everyone is contributing to every module. And there will be certain core modules which will be having, let's say, more functionality or more value than the other code. So it's always a challenge in terms of open innovation. But for open source, there are licenses. And anyone who contributes to like their code, they get to decide under what license they want to contribute. But for the sake of simplicity and for better evolution of the project, it is always decided that the entire project is under one license. And that's sort of consistency a maintainer maintains in an open source project. And there are different category of licenses. So one can actually decide whether they want to go copyleft, weak copyleft, or just permissive if they want to market to adopt their particular project. Because if they go copyleft or weak copyleft, big enterprises will try to avoid that particular project. So that's how open source by design and with the help of these licenses is able to tackle the first problem, which is IP management. Next is complexity and coordination. This is another huge challenge which was solved by Git, because I'm sure most of has used Git for collaborating or to just push their merge or their commits. So what exactly happens is it's by design, it's so simple that whoever wants to contribute to the code, they get to see a certain instance of the code. They can contribute to it, or they can just see how others are developing. So they get to see an entire purview of the code that is available on Git, and so there is no lack of coordination. It's just very seamless. And there are different platforms also: GitHub, GitLab, and other source repositories, SourceForge. So that's how the coordination and complexity in terms of whenever there is collaboration in software development is resolved. Third one is unclear innovation goals. So here there is an open source charter that is framed whenever a project is started. The charter will state out what is the aim and mission of the project, what they are trying to achieve, and there will be frequent releases, which is kind of consistent to other open source projects, that because of frequent releases, they can get that early market feedback and they can change their innovation goals, something which is not possible for other open innovation projects. And the last two, I'll definitely talk about the last one, but cultural resistance is something everyone is aware about, that open source is more about sharing and consuming and giving feedback. And meritocracy is simply that whoever contributes more gets to go higher up the ladder, and they can have a better mandate because they are more invested in the project. And the last one is that because all the work is done in the open, there are no risk of IP leaks, because whenever there is an open innovation project, maybe a hardware project that is being worked upon, teams or companies that are part of it, they need to be very specific that the IP does not leak out of the boundaries of those who have collaborated. But for open source, entire work is done on GitHub, anyone can access it, so there are no risk of knowledge leaks. And this is To-Do's OSPO mind map. I'm sure must have seen this. So what you'll see is that the frequent recurring terms are collaboration, policy, licensing, and contribution. And that's how OSPOs today, as of today, works. There is a governance body, there is a licensing team, there is a cultural team. So what they do mostly is that they are collaborating, they're contributing, and then licensing and policy, they will sort of drive and create that pathway so that others can just follow it. You can read more about To-Do's mind map on their website, but this is like, it's a very comprehensive diagram that captures most of the responsibilities of OSPO and how the teams are structured. Coming back to the last slide, these are the two open source projects that Shell is actively contributing and seeking feedback from others. So first one is real-time data ingestion platform. So anyone who's working on a real-time data can leverage this particular solution. This is a project which is led by LFE now. Shell has contributed it to LFE. So maintained by Shell maintainers, promoted by LFE. It's an amazing tool, and we are using it in-house, and we are also working with our partners to scale it up. Next one is PyElk, which is Python emission localization and quantification. So if anyone wants to measure methane emission or other kind of gas emissions in a certain defined area, they can use this tool to sort of come up with a probability that where the leak has happened and what kind of leak, what kind of the gases are being released in the environment. Both of them are open source under Apache V2, and we would love to hear some feedback if there is any. If there are any questions, I can answer. Otherwise, we can conclude early and everyone can go home. Yeah. Yes, you are.
So these two projects, I believe Shell was maintaining, right?
We are still maintaining it.
So how do you establish democracy kind of thing, these open and not preferred contributions that are, let's say, vital for Shell? How do you still keep that up?
Sorry, can you rephrase your question?
Let's say these projects are funded by some policy or some
Funded.
goals. So in your slide, so these open projects are backed by some policy or some goals.
Yes. There is a mission charter.
And there is an interest of Shell,
Yes.
some commercial value also.
Yes.
How do you maintain a democratic binding on this project while you are maintaining that project and not be biased by Shell?
So this is where being, let's say, led by LFE comes into the picture. Let's just say currently the core maintainer group is Shell heavy. But as the project grows, and because I mentioned meritocracy in the beginning, if let's say other contributors are contributing to it, and then there comes a stage where they have contributed enough that they become part of the steering committee of RTDIP, they get to have a say. But someone who's coming on day one wants to have a say is, I would say, not fair, because the maintainers who have put years and years of work, they should have a say. So anyone, I would say, can decide in which direction RTDIP should be developed, but they need to prove their say like before they do it. So that's how meritocracy works.
Sure.
I hope I answer your question.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Okay, I think that was the last one. Thanks a lot for joining the session. Have a good day.